So this is Rebecca. She is a Forest River Sunseeker Class C. She is 31 feet long, and it's a Ford E450 Super Duty truck with the RV attached to the back. So what that means is this particular vehicle drives a little bit more like a U-Haul rather than the Class A's drive a little bit more like a bus. So everybody's rented a U-Haul vehicle in their days, and just be very careful. You're longer, you're heavier, you don't stop as fast, you can't drive as fast. But in the end, it's just a Ford truck, and everything inside is going to look very similar to what all of your vehicles on the road. There's not really anything that's going to be really funky looking. All the air conditionings, everything is going to look kind of the same. So some things that are different, we do have our automatic mirrors that are here on the driver's side, and it does have a foot brake here. I'm actually going to push it with my hand here. So it does have a foot brake that will put a brake light onto the center dash there. And that release is actually a hand release right here underneath the right above the brake here underneath the dash center area here. I do say make sure you reach back underneath. There's a handle in the back, because you'll see that people have grabbed this plastic here instead of the handle that's a little bit far back, and it has put a little dent here in our dash here. We do have our lights. They are not automatic, so you do have to turn them on and turn them off. This particular vehicle has some cool features in that it has some, beep beeps and little lights if there's somebody that is in your blind spots on left and right. And then it does have a center console that you can Bluetooth to, or you can hardwire to. So if you want to hardwire to it, it's this far right one that's all the way over here. And that will actually put your maps up on the screen. But if you want to just Bluetooth and hear your turn by turn, you can look it up and look up in your Bluetooth and find it and add it there. So you can just hear your music and turn by turn. It does have a rear view camera, and it has side view cameras that are all activated by what gear you're in while you're driving. So when you put it into reverse, that rear view camera will automatically pop up there. And same thing when you put it in, or when you turn on your turn signals, when you turn on your left turn signal or right turn signal, it will activate that camera and the center console there as well. There's all the regular trip things if you want to track your mileage and such. That's there. So the Rebecca doesn't have a tire pressure monitoring system, which I almost feel like cause more hassles than sometimes they're cause benefits, because the tire pressure monitoring systems go out all the time. So what that means in Rebecca is you just have to manage your tire pressures. They are the most biggest aspect to safety for your vehicle, to maintain the proper tire pressures. If you look on the stickers here on the side, it will tell you, and if you forget, it will tell you what the tire pressure is supposed to be. Let's see, it's right here, 75 PSI cold. So that will tell you what they're supposed to be if you forget. But every time you stop, you should actually look at your tire pressures and just make sure that they're good. Also in the front, in a Class C, these vents are really powerful. So our family feels that if you put these vents that are on the side and you kind of direct them to the side and you sort of shove these so they're going more towards the back, it actually gets a pretty good air circulation in the back, so that your guests that are traveling in the back are not hot. But some people still feel like they need to turn on the air conditioning. And remember, in order to turn on the air conditioning, you need to turn on the generator while you're driving. That air conditioning will not work off of the regular battery. Some people don't notice until the very end there is a max AC. We just leave it on that max AC because if you want air conditioning, you don't want just normal, you want the max. And the center console has phone. It has your radio, whatever you like, but you also can listen to your own music tied in there too. So walking down the driver's side of the vehicle, first and foremost, we come to the generator cabinet door. The generator, all of the operation for the generator is inside, but generators are very picky and very finicky. So when we're trying to troubleshoot something and that maybe something is not working the way that you think that it should be working, I'm going to direct you to this outside cabinet that's right behind the driver's side door. And we're going to kind of look at some things here, and we'll be on the phone, so I don't need to go through things, but just anytime, always just make sure that this cabinet door stays on here. That's part of the circulation. But there's ways that you can start the generator from the outside as well. There are some breakers out here as well, so if you overload the generator, the breaker is behind this hose back here. You want to make sure it's in the front position. And if we were to start the generator from the outside, you would push this stop button until this lights up, and then we're going to push the lighted side of the button until the generator starts. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now just so we could see it, but then I'm going to shut it off right afterwards, and we'll operate it from the inside after that point. So push that until the red light comes on. Then we're going to push this. So just a note, see how when I pushed on the start button, it doesn't always start like in the first second. And that's the same as when you're operating it inside. You may have to hold that button for a good 8 to 10 seconds. And you want to hold that button until you hear that it starts and found a regular rhythm. So again, this is not something that I hope that you ever have to look at this portion of the generator, but things do come up, and we like to make sure that you're prepared for every circumstance and have every backup. But we're just going to close up this cabinet door right now, and we're going to hope that you have a flawless trip and you don't need to come out here, and we'll show you how the generator operates from the inside. Walking down the line. Here, we like to keep some oil in there as well. Mainly the reason why we have generator oil in there is, quite frankly, we never know when we are renting a vehicle, whether we're renting it with somebody that's not going to turn on the generator at all, or that they're going to run that generator for 100 hours and possibly need some more oil. So we want to have some backups for you. So we do have an empty cabinet that could be used for storage. I don't think that it's deep enough to put a bike, but definitely, chairs and such. This here is kind of a funny cabinet. It is, oh goodness, look, it's showing us exactly what it is. It's actually an outside compartment to go to the trash can that's inside. We're going to empty that trash. You can actually access it inside the cabinet. There's in the countertop, a little thing that comes off that you can put your trash in there. It's a nice little secret compartment for that trash can. Coming down the vehicle. Next, we've come up to the gasoline. It is regular cheapo gasoline that's not so cheap right now, that you would put in there. That's not diesel. Don't need to worry about anything special. I'm not sure if Rebecca is one of them, but a lot of the RVs, if you just so much as slam it in there, it won't stay locked. You need to pull it out about an inch in order to get it to lock, in order to pump. And just be mindful that if you're filling up your gas tank and it ever stops at a 0-0 or it's $100 exactly, you didn't have a lucky day. A lot of gas stations tend to stop the gasoline at a certain amount, whether it be $100 or $125, $150. So anytime you end at 0-0, most likely your gasoline is not full and you should try it again. For the next cabinet, it is where the sewer and water is situated. For Rebecca, is supposed to hold this cabinet open, but you can see that little thing is broken there. It is actually a little piece of plastic, and they do tend to break. And it kind of gives a good time to note, like, anytime you see anything through your walk-through or when you're walking around, you point it out so that we can make sure that we document it, and so that you can make sure that you're not, I'm not going to say, oh, you broke that. I know that was already like that, but we always want to make sure that everyone is covered and we know when things happened. So inside this cabinet is where the sewer hookups are. So I'm going to pull out the hose. So you'll see back in the back here, you have the little black pipe. There is a black handle and a gray handle. So in theory, you're going to have a campground or a location where you can dump your vehicle. You would then take this end of the hose and attach it to that area. I wouldn't normally do it with one hand, just because you want to make sure that has a good seal. Usually I try to wrap my fingers around it to just make sure that it's on there well. And then this end that has the nice little angled and see-through little angle thing there will actually go in the ground where your sewer connection is. And when everything is all situated and aligned, you would pull the black handle just a little bit to make sure that everything is connected correctly. And then once you're positive on that, pull it out all the way. And you're going to hold that until you have it, drain until there's nothing else coming down here, nothing else coming out of there. Now, I always suggest every other time you dump, if you're going on a long trip, you do what's called a black tank flush. So that's right here. There's a valve that is black and it has a big caution above it. This is the black tank flush. So while this valve is in the open position, you can take the hose that is right here, hook it up to that area there, hook that up to the spigot at the campground. And what that's going to do is it's going to put water on the top of the black tank to really try to get that whole tank cleaned out. What we find is that with renters, they kind of get used to the amount of toilet paper that they use at home compared to all of the water that your toilet uses at home. And then in the RVs, if you use the same amount of toilet paper, you're using far less water. So there's a tendency of having more solids than liquids. So when you dump this, it's actually just the gravity and the water flowing to push everything out. So if you have more solids than liquids, then you need to, use that black tank flush to make sure it's cleaned out. So after you finish the black tank, you would push that valve back in, then pull the gray tank valve. It's gray, that gray handle there. And in theory, that's your soapy water from your shower and your sinks. So that's going to clean this whole hose out, that's got all sorts of icky stuff in it right now. So we always do the gray tank second. So even if your black tank is not empty, your black tank is not full, we're going to do the gray tank second all the time so that we always have a way to clean it out. Let's see, what else is down here? We do have an outdoor shower that has a possibility. And as you can see, there is no nozzle here, and that's kind of a good reason. I don't know. I don't really think that taking a shower outside where people have dumped their sewer onto the ground, that maybe, made a mistake and this is really icky water. I'm not sure that's exactly where you need to be taking a shower. And so I'm not sure if that hose broke and I just didn't replace it, or, why it's not there, but I just don't think it's a good idea. You also will see over here, there is the hose. On the hose is this pressure regulator. This is the end hose connected to this is both ends of the hose connected to each other. So this valve here that has this orange ring on it, that is a high pressure regulator for the water. So depending on where you're going, you don't know what type of pressure you're going to see out of the water spigot. And these pipes in the RVs are little bitty plastic pipes that if you go with full force power, you can have a possibility of busting those pipes. So we always leave that pressure regulator on it. Again, if you don't see one there, please let me know. And underneath that, you'll see this little accordion thing. That actually you put underneath this hose in order to make sure it stays in a gravity flow downwards. And last but not least, in this cabinet, you see your city water connection. So in theory, when you pick up your RV, you're going to pick it up with a full tank of water. So you have a reserve of water, of fresh water in the tank that you can use. And when you get to the campground, you can continue to use that tank from that water or the water from that tank, or you can hook up your hose and connect it to this location here for that city water connection. And that gives you unlimited supply of water, and you don't have to worry about emptying your tank and filling your tank and emptying your tank and filling your tank. However, our family, we tend to do that empty fill, because there always seems to be some water dripping here because the hose is not in there correctly, or there's some, damage to, some crinkles in the metal or whatever, or there's water dripping at the campground spigot, and I don't like to see dripping water. So we tend to just use the water from the fresh tank, and that's our general practice. And just to make sure you understand that although you have unlimited water supply, you still only have the capacity of your gray tank or your black tank. So you still have to dump. And there are some people that feel like they want to leave these handles open when they're at the campground. And, there are a lot of RVers in the world that's their practice. I think that's a bad idea, because I feel like you're leaving all of the possibilities of smells and icky stuff coming from the ground and coming from the sewer to go in your RV. And I feel like that's where you start getting smells inside your RV, and you definitely don't want that. So I always recommend to keep those closed. So in this back cabinet here is where a lot of the extra things are. You do have an outdoor rug. You have your electrical connection here. Goodness, I should have this rolled up and all pretty. So you'll see that this is a 30 amp RV. The electrical connection is here on the back. You would shove it in the right way there and then tighten this little plastic piece down. You want it attached to the RV, because if anybody was walking up and down the RV, you don't want them to disconnect the RV on accident. Then on the other end, you have the 30 amp connection that should always be attached to a surge protector. So that should go into the campground first with that plugged into there. And then you'll see this particular renter that used it last must have had a 50 amp connection here. And so we don't normally have all of these adapters in the RV itself, but we will provide them for you if you need them. You just have to let us know, hey, we have a 50 amp. This particular RV is a 30 amp, and it will run swimmingly off of a 50 amp, but it will not run well off of a regular household outlet. Anytime the air conditioning turns on, it will trip that surge protector in the RV and the house. So it needs at least a 30 amp connection. And again, there's some chairs down here that may or may not be in here, and a nice little big outdoor rug. And this back cabinet here actually have a good amount of storage. There's some chairs down there. There may not be there when you come, but that's where they would be stored. Your manual leveling blocks that I'll talk about later for leveling the vehicle. There is a nice and pretty ladder on the back of an RV. There is absolutely no reason to be on the RV itself. It's just not safe. You'll see that there is a trailer hitch. It is there for you to use. However, you do have to let me know that that's your plan, so that we can make sure you understand how the insurance works. The insurance for the vehicle covers the vehicle itself, but anything that you're pulling behind that will be covered by your own personal insurance. So the main panel for the RV is right by the door and the refrigerator. The first thing we're going to do now that we have electric on is we're going to open the slides. So this particular vehicle, you do have to have the truck in the on position and the parking brake on in order to operate the slides. Then the next thing you want to do is make sure that there's nothing kind of hidden behind the slide or underneath the slide back in the back, and make sure everything is clear and ready for you to open it up. Then you're just going to open up, push the out button, and you'll see that this whole entire slide opens up. So that you can walk back into the bedroom and have some room to walk around the bed. So we are really hot in here. So we already turned on the generator. I pushed the stop button, prime button, until that generator light turned on. Then I held start button until it started. And it took a couple of seconds because we already started it outside, so it was real quick. You'll notice that there is an odometer like thing for the generator hours. That's where we're gonna get the generator hours as part of your reservation. Coming back to the panel here, there are a couple of other things to take note of. First, we have an LPG button. That is your propane. So you'll see that the 4 lights lit up. So that means it's full. So the propane is for your gas stove, and it's also for the refrigerator when it's not connected to any power source, whether it be electric or generator, and you're not driving. So you are sitting in a rest area, maybe stopping for a few minutes to take a rest. Your fridge will operate off of the propane and the batteries. Then the next button here is the fresh water. So I filled that right before, so the fresh water is full. The next button is the black tank. It shows that the tanks are empty. And then the gray water, it also shows the gray tank is empty. Now, those sensors for the tanks, it's not a perfect science. There's a lot of times where we go when we dump the RV, but it still says it's a third or half full. You just kind of have to use some common sense with it as well. Our family, when we are out at a campground, we tend to dump about every 4 days. We find that my husband uses the campground restroom, but me and the 2 girls will use the toilet. And we about every 4, maybe 5 days, will dump those tanks. And we don't mind the sensors that often. We might look at them occasionally. But the gray tank is a little bit different. The gray tank, if you're taking showers in the RV, it could be 2 showers are gonna fill that gray tank. So if you're not using the campground facilities and you're taking showers in the RV, you definitely want to keep track of your water tank levels. And if you find that the gray tank is full, then you're gonna go outside, have somebody, empty the gray tank. But still, even though that black tank is not full, always dump the black tank first. And just to tell you a little bit of common sense, while if the gray tank fills, what you're gonna see is the water in the sink is maybe just not gonna go down the drain. And it's gonna, build up here, or if you're taking a shower, the water's not gonna go down the drain. And fortunately, when you're flushing the toilet, you have to turn around and actually put your foot on that pedal. So you're kind of looking down the toilet as well. So you can sort of tell that the black tank is getting full, but you also have to use some common sense a little bit. So the AC unit in Rebecca is in the back. It's pretty simple. We have just the mode that turns it to cool and dry and then heat. And then you have a fan button here that turns it to different levels, and then your temperature is here. So it's pretty simple. And then the power button is this red button here that turns it on and off. So Rebecca has one AC unit, and there's a little simple mechanism that might help you with your AC for your trip. If this is open like it is right now, then the bulk of the AC is coming out right here. But when you close this, then the bulk of the AC is coming out the vents that are on the roof. But I will caution you that if you have like that vent open and that vent open and that next vent open, there might not be a lot of air that's getting to this one. You know, it's kind of like the leaking bucket and how much air is going to get to that, you know, far vent down the line. One of the cool features about Rebecca is it has this split bathroom. So somebody could be in the restroom while somebody is brushing their teeth at the same time with a door, and there's a nice walkway in between. There is a door that you can even close this door here and close this door here. So if you want privacy in this little area, that's possible as well. Then we have the shower. Just make sure that while you're traveling, you leave this in the locked position, because this door opening and closing, slamming, makes a really loud noise. And we tend to save our broom in the shower just because it's kind of a good place for it to be. We have our RV toilet. When you go to flush, there should be some water. So I'm guessing the water pump's not on. Let's look. Yep. Water pump, you should see that's in the light position there. So now when we go back to flush the toilet, you'll see that there is water coming into the toilet. And after you flush, there is a little bit of water that remains in the toilet there so that it can help be the final seal from the dump in the sewage area to make sure you're keeping smells out of the toilet. There should be toilet paper here for you and some additional toilet paper underneath the sink. We have some toilet chemicals, so when you dump the RV, after you dump, you would throw one of those packets into the toilet and flush with a little bit of water. So anytime you dump, you would get those chemicals out of that cabinet there. We have two different options to run your water heater. You have an electric water heater and a gas water heater. So if you're hooked up to electric campground, at the campground, you would use your electric water heater. Once you push that button and the light turns on there, you have about 20 to 30 minutes before that water actually gets hot. So don't think it's like a tankless water heater. It stays hot all the time. The gas actually does heat a little bit faster, but you know, it still takes a good amount of time. Then you have some lights here, your living room lights and your kitchen lights. We already showed you the slide in and out, and this is a driver's side rear light. I guess back by the back cabinet, maybe there's a light that turns on to light your way as you're dumping and doing the electric. We have a huge fridge in this RV. Huge sometimes means that it's going to take a little bit longer to cool, but it is a huge fridge. So one thing that I like to know about Rebecca's fridge, it's probably my favorite handles, being that it's very easy to open and close the fridge, but I feel like it's also very easy to maybe not close it properly. You want this fridge to like latch up on that thing in order to make sure that it's properly sealed. So if you just sort of close the door like I just did, it may not latch. You do have to hear that click to hear it click it shut. So the operation for this fridge is up in the top. So we have an on and off button that will turn the light on up there. And I'm gonna do a couple things. So see right now, let's see if I can get close enough. See how there's a little light, a little dot to the left top of the 6.0. That means it's on auto. So if I go back here and I click the auto gas button, then you're gonna see that dot moved over to the right to the LP. I'm gonna show you how it moves again. Back to that auto. I leave fridges in the auto mode because then when you're hooked up to electric, you will have the electric that's powering the fridge. And when you're stopped at a rest area and you have no electric, it will then have the gas to power it. If you turned it on to the gas mode, then you're just gonna burn the gas the whole entire time. And that's a waste of gas. And just because it's a cool feature right here by the fridge, there is a pantry that you can put stuff in. Do make sure that you latch it shut there and make sure that when you put things on the shelves that they don't kind of fall over and get stuck behind there. So you have a 3-burner gas stove. It is not a glass top stove. You do need to open that up all the way. And then to light the stove, you're gonna push this in to that light position. And I can't do it with 2 hands. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna show you, this is a click over here, but I can't really do it with 2 hands. So I'm gonna show you again. You're gonna push this to the light and do this click. Then I'm gonna get them all lit and show you what it looks like. So it is a 3-burner stove and you just might have to click it a few times. Sometimes it doesn't light the first time. For the oven itself, again, there's a little light button here. You would push it in and turn to the light and do the clickety-click over here. But what you're lighting is a little bitty pilot light that's all the way down at the back, a little bitty light. And you want for that little bitty flame in order to stay lit. And once that little bitty flame stays lit, then you can turn this into, to turn to the temperatures there, and it will light the whole entire oven. A lot of people feel like they're looking for the whole oven to light and don't know that the pilot is it, and they say that the oven's not working. There also is a microwave here as well. And whenever we're talking about electric and trying to troubleshoot things, people think I'm crazy, but all I usually ask is the microwave working? And the reason why is because the microwave uses that 30 amp power. So if you don't have 30 amp power, you will not see any lights in the microwave. So it's a really easy way to tell if whether you have your power hooked up correctly. So storage wise, Rebecca has lots of storage underneath the benches. Oh, look, somebody's walkie-talkies. Oh. When you are driving, you do have to be properly seatbelted, and the seatbelts, you pull them out behind here. Just the legality rules here are that anybody under 12 years old must be properly seatbelted in the RV. If you're an adult, you can decide that you don't want to be seatbelted and you could be unsafe, but anybody that's under the age of 12 does need to be seatbelted. Up here, we have in this cabinet, we have all of your stuff. You have your plates, your pots and pans, coffee pot with some filters, toaster. You have a little, I call it a purse closet, but there's a Swiffer in there if you'd like it. These are actually silverware, little silverware packs. All of your utensils and some extra storage space. They're your Swiffers. And then these cabinets I kind of left empty for you guys so you could put all of your food and use that as your pantry. And remember I told you that there was that cash can outside? Here's the little cabinet. So you can put your trash in there and then empty it outside. I think it's a really funny little thing, but as you saw in this video itself, that it's easy to forget it's out there. And some more room here under this cabinet here. One thing that I noticed right now, these recliners are an aftermarket thing, and they're really cool recliners, and it's nice to have them. They're comfortable in order to watch the TV that's up here in the bunk area. This TV, you pull it out in order to have it in this position here. But I can notice that they're not plugged in. So behind these recliners, there'll be a little cord that kind of ghetto plugs in right here. Sometimes when you add things into vehicles afterwards, you have to get creative. So that's how those recliners plug in. So I'm gonna go grab that plug right now. And then we do have our ladder to go up into the loft bed. The ladder does get kind of in the way of the recliners, but it works. Just make sure that you're not standing up on the seats or the couch area here, or the dinette. And this section does come out of here. If you feel a little bit claustrophobic while you're in that driving area, you can lift this out and put it back there to give you a little bit more room. So down here by the door area and the steps, we do have our electric leveler. The electric leveler is kind of a cool thing, but it's also a bit finicky and temperamental as well. That's why we have some manual blocks outside as well to make sure that your vehicle is level. Class C's and Class A's aren't wobbly like a trailer, so you don't need to stabilize them per se, but you do want the RV to be level because the fridge does not operate well when things are not level. So you do want your RV to be level. So here we have the electric leveler. In order for this to work, you would have to have your parking brake on and the truck on, and then you'll push this button here and it will turn on. So you'll see it says ready, jacks up, and you think that right here in our parking lot area, that red light means that it's unlevel in that particular side. I'm not going to do it right now because it takes a long time, but now that we have it on, you would just push this auto level button and the whole RV is going to go wah, 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 wah. It's going to have little lights popping up telling you what it's doing, and then eventually it's going to say all is well, or I think it says all level or done, and that's how you know that it's done leveling. Please don't have anybody walking around the vehicle while that's happening, because you're just making it work extra hard. I do want to warn you, when you push this retract button, again, the brake has to be on and the truck has to be on. When you push this retract button, the RV jolts and it makes a loud clanky noise. So I just want to tell you, you didn't break anything. That's most likely, what it's supposed to do. In order to start releasing those jacks. So for some reason, your leveler does not work. We do have some leveling blocks outside in the black, and they're kind of little like little Legos that you would build a little tower and drive a tire up on it. This dial here that's right by the door, this is the main power button for the entire RV. So if you turn this off, nothing will be on. Your fridge will be off as well. So we always recommend you just keep that in the on position. Then you have some extra lights here. And then this is your awning, you extend and retract. Just a couple of little tidbits about your awning. Your awning should only be operated when, it actually is not going to turn on right now because the truck is on. That's funny. Your awning should only be utilized when there's absolutely no wind at all. The biggest thing that we have damaged to the RVs are awnings, and The awnings only should be utilized when you're outside and enjoying them. The second you go inside or you leave the RV, please turn it, bring it in. So again, we're going to have our extend and our retract, but you have to have the truck in, right now the truck is on so that we can have the auto leveler showing you that it's working, but that truck needs to be off. That's just some safety things. We do have a fire extinguisher that's by the door. The CO2 is right underneath the cabinet here, and your fuse and breaker boxes are underneath the fridge. So if there's anything that we have to troubleshoot or if there's any problems, those are those 3 safety areas. I see another thing I haven't mentioned. This is from the solar panels. The solar panels, they either work or they don't work. There's nothing we can do to fix them, if they're not operating. They don't charge the batteries completely. They just kind of help it out. So while if you don't have electric at your campground and you are thinking you're going to manage your power levels with the generator, just know that in order to use the generator, you want to think about 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening just to keep those batteries charged. And if you're using the air conditioner or doing any other things, you may need to leave them on for longer. And I think I forgot one thing. We're going to add it at the end. Never put cold food in a hot fridge. The fridge itself does take about 3 to 4 hours to get cold. So make sure that the fridge gets good and cold before you put your food in. Those temperature sensors in the fridge are really sensitive. And so if you put cold food in there, it's a possibility it could be sensing the temperature of the food, not the refrigerator itself.